Hey, I am so excited and grateful for the opportunity to share with you my passion for my newest book, Know What You Don't Know. After writing Chasing Mission Fit, I really received such a warm reception of that book. And it was really like, hey, this is really what we need. This is something that we really think it will make a big difference. We are going to pivot our marketing to kind of go after those mission fit students, which has been wonderful. And I'm very grateful for that. But one thing I realized is that as I started seeing that happen, a lot of the leaders were leaning into that, but not asking the questions about what they needed to do to make that happen. They were not asking the right questions. And so I realized that a lot of senior leaders, because they are so much experts in other things, didn't have a working literacy of marketing. So they didn't know the right questions to ask when they were talking about building a digital advertising campaign, or didn't know the questions to ask about, putting together a website, or how they might need to assess a program, whether to bring it on or sunset it. And so what I did is I really wanted to create a new book, really focused on what every higher ed leader needs to know about marketing. And so I put together this book to just kind of go through to help explain in common language and easy language, what are the main questions you need to be asking? And so that's why I wrote this book. That's why I'm passionate about this. That's why I'm passionate about, getting resources out there for leaders, especially leaders of small schools and schools that might not have the resources or the teams that larger institutions might have. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to make good decisions and make good investments and steward your resources well. So really looking forward to sharing this with you now.
You're listening to The Higher Ed Marketer, the podcast for marketing professionals in higher education. Join us every week as we talk to the industry's greatest minds in student recruitment, donor relations, marketing trends, new technologies, and much more. If you're looking for conversations centered around where marketing in higher ed is going, this podcast is for you. Let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Higher Ed Marketer podcast. It's Zach Coffin, the Vice President of the Higher Ed Marketer, here with Bart Caylor, and we've got some pretty exciting things going around here. We're actually recording live here at CCCU, the International Forum in Dallas, Texas, and also, by the time you all are listening to this, we just released Bart's new book, Know What You Don't Know, What Every Higher Ed Leader Needs to Understand About Marketing. So, Bart, welcome to your podcast.
Thank you. Again, I'm in the hot seat.
You're in the hot seat again, man. But no, seriously, so excited for this book. The team's been working hard on it. You've worked your tail off on this book. And first of all, I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Because we've been talking about this book for, honestly, since Chasing Mission Fit dropped, and we're like, hey, what do we feel like the next thing that you're wanting to do? And, hearing all the conversations, the internal conversations with this, it's been such a joy just to see your heart for this book come, because you want to help people.
Yeah.
So we're starting with the question that we always ask, Bart, is what's something fun or interesting that you've learned lately?
I have been doing a lot of reading lately, and one of the books that I'm reading that I've enjoyed a lot is Henry Winkler. It's called Being Henry, and it is, if you don't know who Henry Winkler is, he's the Fonz.
Hey, the Fonz. I do I got to do the thumbs too. I didn't have to hold my phone. Hey, the good old Fonz, man. That's
the
awesome.
Good Fonz, yeah. So it's just really interesting because he goes into the fact that is not him. And if you know Henry Winkler, if you've seen him on other things, he is a nerd, and I think he would say that. But this personification of the Fonz that just kind of came out of him. He describes what that was like during the audition. It's been a fun book to read, not only just the history of what his life has been, but just how he applied that character, and that character actually changed him over the course of his life to how he knew himself better and how he could, get the courage to do things emotionally that he needed to do. So it's been a good book.
It's so funny. I love autobiographies and biographies. I feel like it helps us be human when you're getting to read these other stories. So that's cool, man. That's great. Well, I know the team, we're all so excited about your new book. It's been a long time coming, and really not just over the last 18 months, but 35 years of your leadership, that working with people across different sectors and really wrestling with what does it look like. And so Know What You Don't Know, what every hire leader needs to understand about marketing. Right. Why now? Why Chasing Mission Fit was great, but why this book now?
I think that for me, it kind of came down to the fact that so much of the time that I am in these situations, and I have the privilege and the honor to be able to serve a lot of different clients. So I get a chance to see a lot of different behind the scenes. And I realized a couple of years ago that, hey, all my friends are becoming presidents. And so I was like, but I also know a lot of my friends are asking me questions about, hey, what's going on with this? I need to understand more about marketing. Can you give me some ideas or things like that? And so I realized it was pretty common that a lot of times leaders come into their position expected to know a lot of things that they just don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing against them. It's not their expertise. It's not what they know. But I did want to give them something like a handbook or kind of a shorthand that they could refer to say, okay, we're talking about digital marketing, but what are some questions I need to ask?
Yeah.
How can I challenge my team? What can I do to kind of push them further? So that was the idea, was just to give some shorthand for some of my friends to be able to kind of lead better.
I love that. Well, and I think one of the things that I've appreciated about the book is like, it's really, one of the things is demanding kind of this more authentic leader.
Yeah.
Because part of leadership is you recognize there's just things that you don't know.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're a bad leader. We can't all know everything. And one of the principles that you really drive on early is this idea of trusting but verifying. Yeah. Trusting your team but verifying. Unpack that for us a little bit of like, why start with this idea of trust but verify?
Well, I think a lot of times we blindly trust what people tell us. Because I mean, people who have teams, I mean, I'm a leader and I'm blessed with an incredible team. And, we had Drew Flam on the podcast recently. He was here as well. And I really appreciate what he said. He said, I really expect my vice presidents in the domains to know more about their domain than I do. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, I think that that's what good leaders do. I think Drew's a great leader. And I think because of that, we really are going to have to trust our team explicitly on those things if they're the experts and they know more about that. But at the end of the day, the president has to be the one who makes decisions. The president is the one who has to, is going to be held accountable by the board or whatever happens. And so you have to not only trust your team, but you've also got to verify things to make sure that, okay, that sounds great. You are the expert. I trust you explicitly, but I need to make sure. You need to show that to me. You need to help me understand that. And if you know enough to ask questions, that's a place where you can verify. But if you just kind of say, okay, thanks. And I've seen way too many, and I have a lot of examples in the book of leaders who they trusted, but they didn't verify.
Right.
And found out that some of the people, the subordinates, didn't quite understand and didn't have the expertise that they thought they did.
Yeah. Well, and that idea of trusting but verify, it forces your whole team to be better.
Yes.
Because then as a second chair leader or third chair leader or fourth chair leader, it forces you to, one, be a healthy teammate and go, just because my superiors ask me a question, doesn't mean I have to immediately be put on the defensive.
Right.
Like, they're doing their responsibility to ask me. But then also it forces you as a second chair, third, fourth chair leader to actually learn how to articulate your expertise.
Right.
And so by trusting and verifying, the whole team is going to get better. There's a lot of difference between this idea of confidence and competence.
Yeah.
Why is that distinction so important?
Well, I think that sometimes when we have competence, we can naturally have confidence. The problem is that sometimes when we portray confidence without any level of competence, that turns into ego. And I think there's a fine line between, I've seen way too many people use ego as a way to hide behind their incompetencies.
Yeah.
And so
sure.
I'm all about being confident. I'm all about leading well and doing that. But when you lead well, you also lead with humility. And I think you've got to have humility to be able to be a good leader, and especially in a role like a cabinet level or even just a leader, a director of marketing, where you've got people as part of a team that you are serving as a manager or as a leader. Mm-hmm. And if you are coming across cocky or you don't have enough humility, you are putting the entire team at risk because you're not challenging their thinking. You're not helping them grow, like you just said. And so that's where I really kind of wanted to go into that idea that hey, don't fake it till you make it. I mean, it's good. You can do that. I do that a lot, but I'm also, I think it's pretty safe that my entire team knows you can smell it when I'm faking it till I make it. And that's okay. And that there's a confidence in that. But if I'm faking like I don't need to ask questions, or I'm
really
faking that I don't need to, because I don't want to be exposed that I'm less than, that's where I think that's where that humility has to come in, because you've got to be the type of leader that, yes, you're going to be able to fly from your seat of your pants and stuff, but if you're faking it because you don't want people to understand that you don't know, or that you're trying to be something that you're not, I think that gets to be a dangerous place to be.
That's so good. That is so profound. And I think it's so profound too when we talk about working across generations and all that type of stuff, because, the younger generations desire to be a part of those humble type teams.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so good, man. That's excellent. I know we've used this language internally a lot when we've talked about the book, of this idea of like helping bridge the gap between presidents and their teams with these topics of marketing enrollment. Like, what are some of the biggest blind spots that you've seen with that gap? What are some of those blind spots?
Well, I think that a lot of leaders, especially if they're at the cabinet level, they have been around higher ed for a while, or they've been around similar adjacent industries for a while, because they're not going to be in leadership if they haven't. I think what happens is that there are a lot of, especially in marketing, there's a lot of things that have worked over the course of years. I mean, a lot of things are similar to what they were 25, 30 years ago. Yeah. What happens though is that evolving tech and evolution of the way that we do enrollment management has changed. And so there's a lot of new, whether it's digital advertising or whether it is websites or generative AI, a lot of new things have come along, and those are things that are probably maybe have come on before they've been doing it, or they've been engaged with it. And so there's a lot of constant change in marketing. There's a lot of constant change in a lot of different places.
Absolutely.
But higher ed is historically, especially academia, is that there is kind of a try and true. I mean, I know professors who've had the same syllabi for 30 years. And so higher ed is known as being a place that's slow to change. And I think that when you have a place that's slow to change, plus a lot of rapid change going in the culture and in the way that we market to students, that's where it gets to be really difficult. And I think that's where it's important for leaders to understand enough to be able to ask questions.
That's excellent, because the ability to ask those questions provides that bridge to be able to connect those ideas. And so one of the things that I've heard you tell this story multiple times, and it was so fun reading it again in the book, is the story that's forever known as the $1,200 keyword story. Unpack that idea, that the story behind that, because it's such a good illustration of trust and verify, asking the good questions, like the $1,200 keyword. Yeah.
So I was working with a client, and they were asking us to do an audit of a lot of their marketing team and their marketing practices. And they had folks on the team that came from other places. They were some digital ad buyers, and so there was one person on the team that was her job, was to do the digital ads. They had a healthy budget, but it still wasn't unlimited. And if you know anything about digital advertising, the way that Google and Meta make their money is that they charge you for the clicks. So somebody sees an ad, they click on it, and then they go to your website, and it's your job to convert them. So you don't get the lead until you convert them. So you have to pay for the right to have somebody click on a keyword and get over there. And so in the audit, I was challenging the person that was doing the work, because I was going through, and I think it was for an MBA program, because there's a lot of highly competitive programs that if you buy the keyword Master of Business Administration, you're going to bid on that with everybody else who wants that. Yeah. And you're bidding against the schools that have deep pockets,
real big budgets,
and so it's gonna be a race to the bottom really fast if you're going to do that. And so the way that we've always looked at it, and then my philosophy is let's go after all the long tail keywords that cost a lot less than $1,200, and they were consistently buying $1,200 keywords in that MBA program. And I was like, why are you doing this? Because you're burning through your budget. Let's say your budget is $10,000. You've burned through it in 2 days of a 30-day budget. Why are we doing this? And the answer was, well, that's just how much it costs. And then they weren't thinking the fact that, and this is where even at that level where we hired somebody who's an expert from another industry to come in, they might have been working with $1 million budgets,
right?
And they never had to discern whether or not to, they might have just always been trained, you buy the keyword that we want to sell on. You just don't, and when we're in a place that we have to think about stewardship and we don't have the resources, we have to think harder about that. And at that point, that expert that they had in place, they were just assuming that she's the expert. Why should we ask any questions? And it took somebody from the outside to challenge that and ask questions. And even then, I got a lot of pushback on that.
Interesting.
And I was like, guys, let's just, get rid of all the feelings. This is not a feeling thing. This is just a fact of life that needs to change. And so that's where I think, even a lot of the courage that it takes, that I talk a lot about in the book too, is the idea that we have to be courageous to bring those conversations up, have those hard, and praise the person for doing what they're doing. But again, if that culture is in such a way that it's a defensive culture and I'm the expert and that's not going to help either.
So good. In higher ed, you often say that they're data rich but insight poor. Where are we falling short in that, and how can we help address it?
There's a couple of different things. I think that there is a lot of data out there, but a lot of people either don't know how to harvest the data, or they have the reports but nobody looks at them, or they look at the report but they're not reading it from a insightful way.
Right.
And so there's a lot of challenges in that, just the sentence you mentioned. But I think especially in higher ed, it's challenging because many of us wear a lot of different hats. Even at the senior level, I think we've got a lot of hats. And so we really don't have the time and many times can't afford to really dig into the insights we can. That's where I think tools like generative AI and being able to, bring up partners and things like that can help us. You rent the experts instead of hire them. And I don't go into that much in the book. I probably need to do an addendum to it. But there's so many times that people are so quick to be able to hire experts, and higher ed has a historically lower salary base than what you would do in tech or anything else, especially when you look at marketing. It's hard to recruit for the different positions that you need to get the level of expertise that you need.
We say that higher ed is lean and mean.
Yeah, lean and mean. And so that's where I think, being able to partner up with trusted partners to rent their time to be able to get the expertise is something that I would really encourage more schools to look at.
One thing you and I've talked about too is with and we're going to talk some more about AI here in a minute, but one thing you and I've talked about too is data rich, but yet we can be so obsessed with our data that we're actually not staying focused on the mission of who we're actually called.
Well, that's another point.
So unpack that for me a little bit more.
Yeah. So I actually had somebody the other day tell me that they're shifting their enrollment to rely less on data and more on relationships.
Yep.
And I think that's interesting because I think it's a pendulum and it swings back and forth. I mean, there for a while we were all relationship and we don't need any data, and then we're going to swing back over and now we're analyzing every last little thing, but we forget to really make somebody feel good and welcome, and we don't have the hospitality that we need when they get on campus. We need to kind of find that middle ground to land on.
Absolutely.
So that we are informed on who we're talking to. We understand that the mission fit folks that we need to do and what will help convert those leads. But we also have to realize that people make decisions based on relationships.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, how they feel when they're on your campus, how they feel when they go to your website is just as important as if the data. So we've got to kind of figure out a way to kind of get to the point of understanding both of those and doing that.
Well, especially with millennial parents coming on board with sending their students, as a millennial parent, when I'm going and visiting a campus, yes, I want to know the programs. Yes, I want to know the costs. Yes, I want things, but I also want to know, how do I feel and how does my student feel? Not only on campus, but through the recruitment process. And it is I love that image of the pendulum of just you're finding that sweet spot in that bend, because we've got to use our data. We've got to be strategic and smart with that. But if we forfeit the feeling, man,
you're going to lose it.
We're going to lose it. Yeah, absolutely. You and I talk all the time about AI, and we talk about AI in the book, and we talk about mindset stuff in the book. And what I want to kind of tease out in this conversation here is lots of people some are getting kind of almost an AI fatigue of like, oh, we're hearing about is AI,
Right.
is AI, is AI. Shape this for us though of like, why is it so important right now that we're not just pandering to AI dialogue or just tinkering with tools,
Right.
but that we're actually leveling up? Like what? Like you're in it every day. You're doing
Yeah.
it. Like why do we actually need to level up with this stuff right now?
Well, it comes back to what we talked about at the beginning with the humility. I mean, if I'm a leader and I need to, rely on my team, I need to be able to ask the right kind of questions. I can bring an expert in, and people have always had consultants come in. I come in and do that sometimes, but I can also bring in an expert that's an AI, generative artificial intelligence.
Right. Absolutely.
And I can start using this generative AI as opposed to just cleaning up my email to start being a thought partner with me to say, hey, here's the situation that we are in.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. This is what my team has said. This is what the challenge that I'm facing. This is what the board wants. What are 3 questions that I could ask my team to make sure that I get the right thing? AI can do that. ChatGPT, Gemini, any of them, Copilot could do that. And I think that's what's important is that we start seeing AI as more as a collaborator and less of just a program. Because if you're looking like it's a program, you think, oh, I'm just going to do a search, or I'm going to have it clean up like, a grammar checker on steroids. No, this is so much more powerful. Now, it's not AGI. It's not, it is what it is. It's looking for patterns, but it's used to looking at patterns to say, here are questions you should ask about a digital ad campaign, about sunsetting a program, about whatever it is. And so those are some ways that I would look at AI.
So let's get really, really practical with AI stuff because it's easy to stay philosophical with this stuff. If you've got a university president listening right now, or some VPs or whoever, like, what's the one thing you would say to them right now? Like, this would be the one thing to do right now to start taking some progress on this AI front.
Yeah. The first thing I would do is get yourself your own account. Don't rely on your assistant. Don't rely on anything else. Get yourself your own account and get a paid account. You're going to see a difference.
Yep.
And most of your campuses are either going to be a Google or Microsoft campus. If you're a Google campus, you've already got Gemini. That is a powerful, powerful tool. And then just once you figure out what you want to use, put in the reps.
Yep.
If it has to be a meal plan, if it has to be, I don't care, but take a picture of your closet and say, what should I wear today in my wardrobe? And just that kind of thing will help you get into the sense that now all of a sudden I'm starting to treat this like an assistant. We had Amanda Slaughter on the podcast recently, and she talked about how she has 2 assistants. She has a real assistant and a virtual assistant. And I love that.
That's good.
And her virtual assistant was not only her virtual assistant at work, but it was also the virtual assistant at home. And I think that we have to start thinking about these more as these are artificial intelligence assistants rather than just a program that with a prompt box that we can fill in.
It's really good. Really good. I want to shift gears here, and you talk a lot about courage and this call for leadership to really own their solution and own their learning and own the questioning, not just keeping marketing in a certain position within the C-suite, but owning it to collectively. What does courageous leadership really look like right now with all the disruptions and things that are going on? What does it really look like?
I think what it really looks like is loving your team well enough to say the truth. I think that the challenge, especially when we get into Christian education.
Say that again. I want to say that phrase again.
Loving your team enough to say the truth.
It's a big deal.
It is, because I think what happens is that, especially in Christian higher education and in the church, the culture of the church is one that we don't want to do confrontation. We feel like confrontation is a sin, or there's just this level of when we have to go and deal with somebody.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Gospels, if you look at the Acts and you look at the epistles, there's a lot of heated arguments going back and forth. I mean, you look at Paul and Peter with the Gentiles. There was some pretty and you look at Paul and Barnabas and splitting over Timothy. I mean, there's a lot of things where there's confrontation to the point where there's division and split. I think that we hear that going on, but we don't want to be the one that initiates that. We don't want to instigate that. And I think that that's where, if you do it out of love and you do it for truth, that's a whole different ballgame than I think a lot of the petty stuff that many of us might have grown up in the church with or saw that kind of formed our thinking. And so I think being courageous is not, I mean, it's a lot of different things, but I think if we can do it by loving our team to tell them the truth, I think that's where we need to start.
Absolutely. Well, and just because there's tension doesn't mean it's a problem.
Right.
Like sometimes I think again, in our Christian leadership circles, it's like if we can feel like if it's not all kumbaya that we're being disloyal or and I go, no, the healthiest teams say the quiet part out loud, have the discussion, but are also, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, are also healthy enough to recognize that just because questions are asked, now it matters how you ask them, the timing matters. We've got to be wise and discerning of how we do those things. But just because you come to me and you say, hey, Zach, what's da-da-da? It doesn't mean that you're mad about 10 other things. Right. It's like, no, we have to be able to have those conversations because, again, what's the most important part? The mission of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And you and I have had several conversations about this because, I've got this book, I've written all this stuff, but man, sometimes depending on the day and my energy and my mood, I question myself. I'm like, oh man, was it okay that I pushed you on that? I asked you about that. And that's just me. That's my stuff. But that shouldn't prevent me from doing what I need to do.
Absolutely. Yep. And in the same way I said to you, like, no, I need you to challenge me. Like that makes all of us better. That makes us all a better team. That's good, man. What's the cost of not changing and learning how to ask these questions? Like, what's the actual cost if we've got leaders that are like, oh, I just don't have time to learn something else, or I just don't really have the energy. Like when you're a president or like you're in these roles, you're getting pulled a lot of different directions. What's the cost?
Well, there's a lot of different costs involved. I mean, one chapter in the book, it was $3 million. There's hard dollars involved with it. There's also opportunity cost. I've worked in different roles sometimes where we needed somebody to do something and they just wouldn't do it, and the opportunity cost of a major gift was affected.
Yep.
And so cost is quantified in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's going to be dollars, sometimes it's going to be opportunities, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you the health of your institution. Because you might say, okay, well, that one time we did that cost us a big dollar amount. But if you continue to do and practice the same things that you're doing, not only does it cost you in resources, but it costs you in trust and it costs you in the team, because they start to realize that you're not going to lead well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to serve under somebody who doesn't lead well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on. I know some teams, the teams they will die for each other. I know it was another thing that Drew Flom talked about in his conversation about grace, and the fact that I really loved how he said that the team, the cabinet team, is the team. And that's where the loyalty is. And that's where they're all working together to lead in the same way.
Yep. Common goals.
Yep. Common course. And so the idea that you've got to have that, and that collaboration with your team is so important. And if you've got that, you can move the world. But if there's elements in there where there's not good leadership or there's dysfunction that's not addressed, that will blow it up. And I've seen that far too often.
What is one piece of encouragement you want to leave everybody with?
I think the encouragement would be, you're not in it alone. One of the reasons that I wrote this book is, like I said, a lot of my friends are presidents. I have talked with a ton of presidents. We're here at CCCU, and I've got a ton of presidents coming up and hugging me and seeing me and
cool.
talking. And I love the fact that I have a unique position because I talk with everybody else and I hear what everybody else is dealing with, what they're challenged with, what they're trying to learn. And you're not alone. And there are a lot of people, whether you're a president, whether you're a VP, whether you're a director, it doesn't matter your role. You might feel overwhelmed. You might feel like, man, this is horrible. It's happening elsewhere too. And I would just encourage you to come to places like this, because you're going to be able to get the encouragement and the fellowship from other people. Have people you can talk to. Have trusted people that you can kind of unburden with a little bit. I mean, I value that with you and my team. I know a lot of the presidents value that with me, where they can just kind of unpack. And I think that helps them realize that, okay, I'm not alone. Bart's seen this. Zach has seen this before. Yeah. It is one of those things that I think being a leader sometimes can be a very lonely place. And it doesn't have to be.
So good. That is a great place to land.
Yeah.
Well, man, the team's so proud of you. I know
you.
you've worked so hard, and again, what I have appreciated about you, Bart, is not just the production of just doing another book, but the heart and foundation behind it.
Yeah, thanks.
And the team's so proud of all the work that you're doing on that. And I know that it's going to be such a gift to higher ed and to help bridge that gap. And so, man, we love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Appreciate
it.
you. We're so excited. And so if you want to grab a copy of Bart's book, Know What You Don't Know, it is out wherever books are sold. And so thanks a lot for joining the Higher Ed Marketer. We'll see you next week. The Higher Ed Marketer podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer podcast network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.